I look at my picture, I look a bit serious. Yeah? So don't worry, I will try to make it light. So first of all, a big thank you to Deliver Asia. I mean, it's also an honor to be part of your very first time in Asia, big Asia fan myself. So in the next roughly 20 minutes, I will share our story about transforming our supply chain by adapting sustainable materials. I think there's some time for the Q&A. I'm not sure how I want to do it, but by all means, if there are questions, raise it, ask. Yeah, I rather have it a bit interactive than me telling and speaking all the time. So I think in essence, what I would like to do, and here, Kimberly, I'm not sure where you are, but I will pick from your presentation. I want to tell the story of Pandora moving into lab-grown diamonds, as well as moving to recycled silver and gold. And I want to share that this is not only a sustainability ambition, this is also very much engraved and linked to our DNA of Pandora, as well as to our business strategy. And that's why I think it's an example of where sustainability can really be effective. Again, not as a standalone ambition, but how can you connect it also to your business strategy. So if you would look from an emissions perspective, lab-grown diamonds are roughly 5% of the emission baseline if you compare them to natural diamonds. Hence, if we would use lab-grown diamonds instead of natural, we can actually reduce quite significantly our emission baseline. Same thing goes for recycled silver. If you look at silver versus recycled silver, it's roughly a factor 1/3, 1/4 of carbon emissions. So you can imagine as Pandora, who is primarily using silver for their jewelry, if you can transition to recycled silver, we can drastically reduce our carbon emissions. So briefly about myself, for most of my career working in supply chain operations, primarily FMCG, electronics, last 5 years in jewelry, worked in management consulting. Don't judge me on that. I've also had functional leadership roles for the majority of my career. Since 2012, based in Southeast Asia. Big fan of Grab, by the way, Kimberly. And since 2020 with Pandora, of which the last 2.5 years in my current role, overlooking our supply chain and sustainability team. So, who knows Pandora? Okay. There's still a few souls I can convert to make sure that you go to a Pandora store before you leave the country, or if you're living in Singapore, take the chance. In some key figures. So this is for our very first time that we exceeded 30 billion or above 30 billion Danish kronen in revenue. It's a Danish company. Everything is Danish krona. Conversion is around $4.5 billion US dollar. We have 37,000 employees globally, of which 13,000 based in Asia, working in our crafting facilities out of Thailand and very soon out of Vietnam. Close to 7,000 point of sales, serving 100 countries around the world. 800+ million visitors online, offline over a year. And then the focus for today is we are producing with 100% recycled silver and gold since mid last year. And we are selling roughly 113 million, or we sold 130 million pieces last year. Now, there is one key number which I personally find very impressive when I hear it for the first time, and that is Pandora is basically selling 3 pieces of jewelry every second. So by that, we are truly the largest jewelry brand in the world. About Pandora, just to give a context and understand where we see our competitive advantage. In a nutshell, we are vertically integrated. There's nothing special about that. I think what's special about Pandora is that the majority of our production is in-house. So over 90% of our jewelry is produced in our own crafting site. As well as we own the majority of our stores. So the 7,000 stores we operate globally, the majority is owned by ourselves, which sets us up for using our skill to advantage. We can really produce at effective costs, while we can also grow our business relatively easy because we can expand the store network quite easily. In terms of our products, so I hope everyone recognizes Pandora of the charms and the carrier. That's where it all started for Pandora. That's still by far our largest segment when it comes to our revenue. But we also try to introduce what we call Fuel It More, new designs, new collections. And I'm wearing here lab-grown diamonds as one of the examples of new collections which we added to grow our business. As I said, I see sustainability not as a standalone activity or a standalone objective. It needs to be integrated into your strategy. And I think if you look at the story of Pandora, in a nutshell, it's a company which is only 40 years old, which I think is still young. I like to think that it's young because I'm 40 myself, so it's a young company. It grew very fast with the introduction of the charm and carrier around 2000. Then our growth actually stagnated around 2017-18. We had a downturn. We had to do a turnaround of the company, which was successful in 2019. And then in 2020, we launched our growth strategy called Phoenix. And this was for the very first time that actually sustainability was an integral part of our growth strategy. And I will also end the presentation on what I feel were one of the main reasons why we were able to do this transition. But one of them is that sustainability is engraved in our strategy and also gets full support from our executive leadership team, hence driving an ambitious agenda is doable. If you look at Pandora and the sustainability agenda, basically it's 3 parts. So low carbon business, that's our contribution to where we want to reduce our emission baseline over the years to come. 50% reduction across our scope 1, 2, and 3 by 2030, and we aim for carbon neutral by 2040. If you look at circularity, that relates to recycled silver and gold. So we look at our materials and see where can we actually increase our circularity, also to drive the emission baseline. And we are still looking at what could be next for us. And then inclusive, diverse, and fair culture, that touches more also on working conditions in our entire supply network. So, as of today, recycled silver and gold is not that new anymore. But back in 2020, when we announced by 2025, we will be using 100% recycled silver and gold, it was actually for the first time that a company the size of Pandora made this statement. And it's very interesting because also from a supply perspective, there was no such thing as recycled silver and gold. It was completely new. We didn't know yet how we would reach that. We didn't know yet how to control it. So, as I said, looking back where we are today, it's maybe not that shocking anymore, but back then when we announced it in 2020, it was a big deal, especially for the jewelry industry. So, why did we do it? I mean, if you look at our metals, silver is by far the majority we use in our jewelry. And one of the reasons is that if you look at Pandora, we aim for making jewelry accessible for everyone. Hence, our price points are typically in a range whereby we are in kind of a mid-range. We also hear, and I think that's not surprising, that more and more, both consumers as well as shareholders are asking for what are you doing as a company when it comes to sustainability. So driving sustainability, again, as part of your strategy is something what companies and consumers nowadays expect from yourself. And it even goes that far that some of our loans are connected to our sustainability targets. So if we are not delivering on our sustainability ambition, it will impact in some of the loans we have out there. What was for us very important from the beginning is that we wanted to make sure that when we go out and we say now we are recycled silver and gold, that we do it in a way whereby we choose the most stringent criteria, and we also need to make sure that our supply chain was kind of auditable so we can prove that it's truly recycled silver and gold. So, about the journey. Back in 2010 or 2021, we announced in 2020 the ambition for 2025, and then we needed to start to understand how are we going to do this, what is the scope, what is the standard we are going to set. And as I said, we went for the most stringent standard just to make sure that when we would communicate that we transition to recycled silver and gold, it was also a trustworthy commitment. Then around 2020, we made the first step that all of the silver and gold which came into our own crafting sites was actually recycled. And in order to do that, you need to work with your suppliers, which are your finers, and they need to make sure that they can prove where their scraps are coming from to ensure that we have 100% recycled silver and gold. You can imagine there's no difference between recycled silver or non-recycled silver in the look and feel. So it's very important that you make your supply chain auditable to prove that you are really operating with recycled silver and gold. So we did that by 2022. And actually this was not an easy step, but was, from a supply chain perspective, actually the easiest step, because we control it. It comes in our own operations, we know what we are doing, we are transitioning 100%. The challenge here was to convert our supplies, because we are producing a lot in-house, but not everything. So some of our chains, some of our components are produced externally. And to bring those suppliers with us to do the transformation of 100% recycled silver and gold, of course, requires a lot of collaboration and a lot of explanation and a lot of support to make sure that they are with us. Also, don't forget that most of our suppliers at the time didn't operate recycled silver and gold and had different customers than Pandora. So we actually asked them, can you kind of split your operations? Can you have one lane recycled, one lane non-recycled? So that was a big challenge, and I'm speaking here on behalf of my team. Trust me, right? I'm not that involved. It's my team who's doing all of the hard work. But that was a big milestone when we were able to transition all of these suppliers. Now, the nice thing is, and I will come back to that at the end of the presentation, being a larger player, in this case in the jewelry industry, also allows you to make this ambition moving forward. And actually we see that some of our suppliers joined us by saying, now we need to make this first step of becoming recycled. Instead of keeping it split, we are going to transition to be 100% recycled silver and gold. So although we can't measure it quite easily, we believe that it's not only our emission baseline which has been reduced, but indirectly also of other jewelry manufacturers, because our suppliers joined us to go to be 100% recycled silver and gold. And then in January 2024, we were able to announce that we completed the journey of moving into recycled silver and gold 1 year ahead of the milestone of 2025. So again, a big achievement. It sounds very straightforward if you need to condense it in 10 minutes, but trust me, there was a lot of work, and many examples of, you can imagine it's relatively small pieces. There were pieces which are produced with gold leaf, right? So very thin. How are you going to work with that supplier to make sure that that's 100% recycled silver and gold? So there was a lot of work, not for the first 90%. There was a lot of work to also have the last 1% of our consumption being recycled silver and gold. And to celebrate this milestone, of course, we made a small video, which I will show you now, to celebrate this milestone. So I spoke about recycled silver and gold. Now I will spend a few minutes about our diamonds. And what's important is not only to realize that, again, from a lab-grown perspective, the emissions are much lower than natural diamonds, but it's also the connection to Pandora's DNA and our strategy. And if you look at Pandora, we are operating in the accessible jewelry industry. So we are aiming to make jewelry accessible for everyone. That's where the beauty of lab-grown diamonds comes in. It's not only helping us with the carbon emissions, but it's also helping us to bring diamond products at a very affordable price point. So this is, to me, an example of where sustainability ambition is actually combined with a business ambition and a business strategy to drive that forward. So in terms of the journey we started here, again, back in 2021, we started to explore. And the reason why we did it at the time is that lab-grown diamonds in itself is nothing really new. The technology was there already in the 1950s and the 1960s. What changed drastically is that there was a breakthrough which allowed to produce lab-grown diamonds at a much easier and a much larger scale. So also here we could be able to tap into the fact that there was a technology development which would allow us to actually ramp up working with lab-grown diamonds at the scale Pandora is doing. Now, back in 2021, this was again very new. So you can imagine from a supply chain perspective, it takes quite some exploration, unknown territory on where do you find these diamonds, who are your suppliers you want to develop with. It was a very new industry, so our suppliers were also developing themselves. And then on top of that, we said we only want to have lab-grown diamonds, which are grown with 100% renewable energy. So adding an extra challenge for our supply chain team to make this happen. We did a launch in the UK, followed by a launch in North America in 2020, which until today is the biggest market, both for Pandora, but as well in lab-grown diamond. You really see that that market has been embracing lab-grown diamond quite significantly, and that's where we also grow the most. From a supply chain perspective, what we had to do is we had to scale our network. And we also had to learn how do we actually sell these products, because they come still at a different price point than our other jewelry. 2023, we expand to more countries. Now, from a supply chain perspective, the interesting part is that we here started to see consolidation. So where in 2021, we were faced with, we don't have enough supplies, there's limited capacity globally, no one really is able to do it at 100% grown, with 100% grown renewable energy. We are now seeing a tipping point of there's a lot of capacity out there in the market, there's a lot of suppliers, but now we need to make sure that we work with the ones which are also truly driving on the sustainability. So combination of further expanding into the markets, growing the volumes, but also seeing a change in the supplier landscape. And then the last one, last year we launched in Denmark in our flagship store, and we keep on growing our offerings, also introducing Malay, which is basically smaller stones, smaller diamond stones. I'm not sure if you recognize the woman in the picture here. Right, so I hear her name. So Pamela Anson is one of our brand ambassadors, which really helped not only to drive lab-grown diamond, but she's actually also driving the brand awareness of Pandora as such. And here, you see here an example of one of the commercials we had, whereby we really try to explain from a Pandora perspective, we see an opportunity to democratize diamonds, making diamonds accessible at the price points for everyone. I have one small video to also share a bit more about how lab-grown diamonds are grown before I ramp up the close of the presentation today. So, in conclusion, as I said before, looking back, I think there were three main reasons on what made us able to do this transformation and what I feel was very important to make this happen. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer, and you hear it often with big programs, executive sponsorship. If your executive leadership team is not behind it, as soon as you have a small roadblock, it's very hard to push through. And I think here, both on the recycled silver and gold, as well as the lab-grown diamonds, our CEO is a big supporter of we need to drive this. Even if there's barriers, we need to keep going and set ambitious goals. I think that's one. Two, as I also said in my presentation, I really feel that Pandora sets sustainability ambitions not only for the sake of having sustainability ambitions, but we make sure that it's also connected with who we are as a company and how is it connected to our business goals. And I also feel that that combination makes it easier to push forward on these sustainability ambitions and also make sure that gradually, it takes time, gradually we start seeing decisions around sustainability, around carbon emissions, becoming integrated into the day-to-day decisions I think everyone is familiar with in terms of cost, service, and quality. And then last one, I think in all fairness, we also can leverage the fact that we are, from a volume perspective, the largest jewelry manufacturer in the world. So we took that opportunity to make a bold statement and make sure that our suppliers and our supply network was able to join us and making this transition happen. So that is for myself today. I'm actually wearing more products than I normally do. I feel a bit like one commercial walking person. But if you want to have a look at the diamonds, if you want to look at our recycled products, by all means reach out and I can share more. For now, thank you for your time.